Hello everyone and welcome back to another Average Review. And today we're going to be reviewing the McFarlane Collector Edition Strange Live Superman. Now, taking a look at the packaging, and yeah, it's a pretty standard McFarlane Collector Edition flare. We have the names and logos down here on the side along with some silver foil. On the side, we see that this is a McFarlane Collector Edition figure of Superman from The Strange Lives of Superman. It's number 39 in the Collector Edition series. And on the back, we see some art of, well, the titular Strange Lives of Superman. These were all just a bunch of crazy things that happened thanks to, well, I'm pretty sure primarily red kryptonite in the Silver Age of comics. The versions of Superman included in the regular release are Big Brain Soups, regular soups, and Superman with a lion head and hands, which is how he's presented in the box. The other two heads are actually included with the Platinum version, which I'll talk about later in the video. But anyways, yeah, packaging is pretty nice, just a standard McFarlane Collector Edition box, with admittedly, some really fun art on the back. Alright, getting the figure out of the box, and first of all, I'm just going to be using the normal Superman head and hands for most of the video, with your blessing, since, I mean, it's the normal Superman head and hands, and not some crazy red kryptonite stuff. So, taking a look at the base figure, and yeah, this is mostly just reuse of that Crisis on Infinite Earth Superman body that I actually reviewed with the Fleischer Studios Superman figure a little while back. And hey, no complaints from me. This is a near perfect McFarlane Superman body. I say near perfect because there's one issue we'll get into during the articulation. But in terms of looks, this figure looks amazing. I really like the shades of red and blue. They don't exactly feel like a Silver Age Superman necessarily, but I still really like the color scheme. They remind me of stuff like the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited shows, which, I mean, I love those shows, so that's perfectly fine by me. Taking a look at the logo, it is very nice and crisp. I love how it looks. I do think this logo looks better than the ones on the DC Digital Silver Age Superman, because it doesn't have the black outline around the S and stuff. I don't really like that on, like, Superman figures, since I feel like just this looks so much cleaner. And honestly, now that I look at it more, this Superman almost reminds me of Alex Ross's take on the Man of Steel. And I mean, Alex Ross is one of the best comic artists to ever make comic art, so that is another positive. Although, the logo is a fair bit smaller than Ross's, and there's also the cape, which I have some problems with. It's very short, first of all. I mean, you could probably, solve that by just moving it down a bit, but even then, it's still pretty dang short. Another issue is that looking at the back, it only really looks natural if you have it spread out, which makes the cape even shorter. One thing I will compliment, though, is the yellow S on the back. That's a super necessary part of Superman's cape, in my opinion. And I'm really glad they put it on this figure especially. It looks really good. Now, moving up, we have a part of the figure that I've seen a lot of people dislike a bit, the head. And I get it a bit. It's definitely not the best McFarlane Superman head. I mean, there's been plenty of better ones, but I don't think it's that bad. I feel like the biggest problem is that, it looks almost like he's balding, so this almost looks like an older Superman. Still, I don't really hate this head sculpt. It still looks like a nice, fairly passable Superman head sculpt. Better than some of McFarlane's others, that's for sure. So yeah, not really much to say about this Superman. I really love the color scheme and the logo, but the cape leaves a bit to be desired, even if it has the yellow S on the back. But hey, enough about the looks. Let's see the articulation on this guy, which, I mean, there's been a bunch of releases for this figure, so if you've been watching DC Multiverse reviews, you've probably seen this before, this body. He can look up this far, which is pretty good for a flying character like Soups. He can look down a fair bit, tilt his head side to side, and spin his head all the way around. He's got a rotator cuffs, which gives you a pretty good amount of wobble. His arms can spin around and raise up a bit above 90 degrees, which is pretty good. He's got bicep swivel, which gives you 360-degree turning, along with double jointed elbows with a pretty close to perfect bend. He's got the McFarlane wrist articulation that can spin and hinge in, well, it seems to be fighting against me. Nope. Can hinge in pretty much any direction, which, as usual, is pretty nice to see. What isn't nice to see is the torso articulation, which, like most McFarlane figures, is done with a diaphragm joint and a ball joint in the waist. He cannot hunch forward at all, but he does get a pretty good arch back for some really great looking flying poses. He's got the standard McFarlane style hips that can kick forward a little under 90 degrees, which is pretty decent. He can do a perfect split, which is always awesome to see. He's got a bit of the McFarlane hip turning, so for those that care about that, there you go. He's got very stiff double jointed knees that get a pretty good bend, and he's got the McFarlane style ankles that spin around, hinge forward and back, and pivot side to side. And finally, he's of course got the McFarlane toe articulation. But that's not all in terms of posing, because even though it's not technically articulated, like I mentioned, the cape is wired. There's 2 wires on the sides, and in fact, a wire at the bottom of the cape, which is pretty nice to see, although it does kinda interfere with getting a neutral pose like this, since you also have to fiddle with the wire to get, the cape in a very neutral pose, which you might have to watch out. The wire could snap, and that definitely wouldn't be a good thing for a figure like this. Moving on to the figure comparisons, and we of course have to start out with the standard male and female comparisons for this channel, the Hasbro Marvel Legends Renew Your Vows Spider-Man and Spinneret. But hey, moving on to some DC comparisons, we of course have to bring out Superman's pal. No, not Jimmy Olsen, he hasn't gotten a McFarlane figure yet, but Batman. On the left, we have the blue and gray version of Nightfall Batman, and on the right, we have the blue and gray version of Three Jokers Batman from the Amazon exclusive Bat Family 5-pack. But hey, we can't have a DC Trinity without, of course, Wonder Woman, this being the Page Puncher's Golden Age version of Diana. But hey, let's bring out some other Justice League members, starting, of course, with Flash and Green Lantern. Flash is technically Barry Allen from DC Rebirth, but if we're keeping up with the Justice League the Animated Series comparisons I brought up earlier, this looks pretty much the same as Wall-E, except without the white eyes, so I feel like this could work for a Justice League the Animated Series style Flash. Same with John Stewart, which is actually the Endless Winter John Stewart head on the Collector Edition Green Lantern body. Speaking of Endless Winter, here's Aquaman from that storyline, and the Mattel DC Universe Classics Martian Manhunter to round out the Justice League mainstays. Although I should note, I really gotta get my hands on that Collector Edition Hawkwoman, because A, it's a really cool figure, and B, it would finish out the Justice League the Animated Series lineup, which, that'd just be awesome. Although we could do for a better Martian Manhunter than that Target exclusive one. Just saying. For some slightly less mainstay League members, though, we have the Collector Edition Firestorm and the Target exclusive Red Tornado, who really doesn't want to stand up and is leaning back against the wall. Superman actually has one thing in common with each of these figures. In terms of Firestorm, he's obviously a Collector Edition like I mentioned, but what I haven't mentioned is that he's a Target exclusive like Red Tornado. And hey, speaking of Target exclusives, I guess I should bring out some fellow exclusives to Target, Hourman and Wildcat from the Justice Society of America. But hey, I think it's finally time to move on to some of Superman's iconic villains, starting off with Lex Luthor and his power armor from DC Rebirth. Honestly, the way Superman's head is positioned and Lex Luthor's eyes are looking, it kind of looks like they just got into an argument and don't want to continue talking, which, I mean, that's what they do a lot of the time. Just with a bit more punching laser beams and radioactive rocks. For some other villains, though, we're starting out with Atomic Skull from the Amazon exclusive Superman vs. Atomic Skull 2-pack, who is also based on pretty much the same body mold as the armored Lex Luthor, just with some different forearms, head, chest plate, and boots. For another villain from DC Rebirth, though, we have General Zod, who is surprisingly smaller than Superman, which is weird to see. But hey, moving on, we have the DC Page Puncher's Brainiac by McFarlane, which, yeah, this is probably my favorite Brainiac figure ever made. I mean, just look at it. Bringing out some of the big guys, though, we have Doomsday by Mattel, specifically the New 52 version. Even bigger, though, is the Anti-Monitor Megafig by McFarlane from Crisis on Infinite Earths. Still one of my favorite DC stories ever told, although I do find it a bit funny that this Superman figure has a darker, almost more muted blue than the Anti-Monitor, you know, the guy trying to destroy all of the multiverse. But hey, we can't bring out villains without bringing out one of the most famous DC villains, especially with a bunch of recent adaptations, Darkseid, specifically the DC Classic version. And yeah, going with the Superman the Animated Series comparisons, this Darkseid does look like he's ready to brainwash Superman and make him a soldier of apocalypse. Speaking of Darkseid and Jack Kirby's New Gods, though, I gotta get my hands on that Target exclusive Orion, because, I mean, it's a figure of a classic Jack Kirby character. How could I not? Moving on to some figures of other versions of Superman, though, we have the 1940s Fleischer Studios version. I do gotta admit, this is definitely a better head sculpt for Superman. Not just because I'm a big, fan of Golden Age Superman, but I just think it looks a bit better. I'd say this is definitely in the top 5 or maybe even top 3 McFarlane Superman head sculpts. For a live-action take on Superman that has become so cemented in pop culture, though, we have Christopher Reeve's version of Superman, specifically the McFarlane Page Puncher's Superman 78 figure. Although for another live-action Superman that I really, really love, we have David Corenswet from Superman 2025. I really hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But as is tradition, here's the McFarlane Collector Edition Strange Lives Superman with the Marvel Legends Hitmonkey and Goliath. Alright, now moving on to the accessories, and of course, being a McFarlane DC figure, not just that, but a collector edition, Strange Lives Superman comes with a figure stand and a trading card. I actually really like how this trading card looks compared to other DC ones. The foil text on the side is out of the way, and once again, just like the back of the box, it's this really cool artwork that showcases the 4 weird Supermen and, well, just regular Superman. If you're wondering, here's the back of the card and the bio. Pause if you want to read it. But don't worry, there's much stranger accessories than just a trading card and figure stand. Now, I've been showing this Superman off with the normal head and hands, but both of these were actually alternates. He comes with 2 alternate heads and a pair of alternate hands. Here's one of the alternate heads being Superman with a massive brain. Honestly, this is a really fun head. I don't know if I'm ever going to use this, or maybe even the other one, but man, it is just so fun to see. But I mean, easily the best accessories are the alternate lion head and hands. These are just unbelievably silly. The lion head is actually really well sculpted and painted. Same for the hands. I mean, that's a pretty good looking lion head, but I love the claws. It looks like Superman's wearing like clawed mittens for like a costume. I love that the little like brown paws are painted. Same with the sharp nails. This is just an awesome accessory. But that technically isn't all, as the platinum version of this figure, which is much harder to find, actually comes with completely different accessories. The Platinum Edition figure itself is meant to be the Superman Red side of the original, Silver Age Superman Red, Superman Blue story. Technically, this Superman, of course, has blue, but the original Superman Blue from that story was just fully blue with no red, so you kind of only get half of the story. Either way, I still think that's really fun, but the alternate heads are completely different. One of them looks like Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine, and the other is the bandaged Superman head sculpt. And instead of the lion hands, you just get normal Superman flight hands. I would like to mention the bandaged head was actually repurposed for the amazing, amazing story All-Star Superman. I won't spoil it, but that identity is used in that story for probably one of the best, if not the best, issues in that series. Alright, let's get the price out of the way. Being a McFarlane Collector Edition, The Strange Lives of Superman as a Target exclusive retails for about $30-ish. Probably a bit more than that, but that's around the price you'll pay in store, which I did. I found it at a Target that usually has absolutely nothing in terms of figures, so I guess luck was just on my side today. But this figure is incredibly hard to find in stores. Honestly, for a while, I just kind of gave up on looking for this guy. So, you're likely gonna have to resort to eBay, and on eBay, in box, this figure goes for upwards of $50, so more than a $20 price hike, which is pretty dang steep. So yeah, that's really unfortunate for people who just absolutely can't find this guy in any stores. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Collector Edition Strange Lives of Superman? Overall, I am very pleased with this figure. The color scheme is fantastic. Probably one of my favorite color schemes McFarlane has ever chose for a Superman figure. The head sculpts, wow, definitely a bit of an acquired taste, mainly in terms of the regular Superman head. I do really like them, especially the lion head. That one is absolutely amazing. Of course, this being the Crisis on Earth's Earth 2 Superman body, it's got some mostly great articulation, and I do really love the yellow S on the back of the cape, and how well this guy fits with pretty much all DC figures. Although granted, that's because it's a classic Superman. That kind of fits with every era of DC. But this figure does have its faults. It's pretty hard to find, although that's probably due to, scalpers, especially since it's a store exclusive. And in terms of problems with the figure itself, well, just like usual for this body, he cannot hunch forward at all. It's kind of annoying, especially, since this is the most common body used for new McFarlane Superman, and it's so close to being pretty much a perfect base body. I also have a couple problems with the wired cape, which I usually don't, since wired capes are awesome. I just feel like it's a bit too short, and also, it's a pain to get this thing into a neutral pose. Either way, I'm still really happy with this Strange Lives Superman, and I'm happy I was able to get a hold of it, even if it took a couple months to do so. So overall, considering everything, the many positives, the negatives that leave an ever so slight sour taste in my mouth, I'm gonna give the McFarlane Collector Edition Strange Lives of Superman a 9 out of 10. This is definitely going to be the main regular Superman in my DC Multiverse display from now on. So if you made it this far into the video, well, first of all, thank you very much for watching. Second of all, what are your thoughts on this figure? And hey, if you own some, what's your favorite McFarlane DC Multiverse Superman? Personally, I can't decide in the slightest, but out of the ones I own, it's definitely this one. But hey, last of all, have a great day, 'cause you deserve it. Bye-bye!